With a population of 573, Tennessee Town has been in Topeka since 1879, with the borders being 10th Street, Washburn Avenue, Huntoon, and Clay. Tennessee Town is located in central Topeka. In the 1870s, after the Civil War had divided the country north and south, black and white, newly freed slaves began to leave the South to start new lives in the West. That migration became known as the Exoduster movement. Benjamin Pap Singleton is credited with organizing that movement and led many of the freed men, women, and families west to Topeka, Kansas. Dr. Charles Sheldon thought that Jordan Hall would be a good place to start a kindergarten, and by the spring of 1893, the first black kindergarten west of the Mississippi was opened. There were 3 teachers, a principal, and 2 assistants. Mrs. Jane Chapman was instrumental in helping in several projects, including a PTA for the children's mothers. The new kindergarten was housed at the Tennessee Town Congregational Church. The kindergarten at its new location taught our children until 1910, when the city, better late than never, decided to support it and relocate it at the Buchanan School, now known as the Buchanan Center at Southwest 12th and Buchanan Street. The Buchanan Center now holds the Housing and Credit Counseling Incorporated and Cornerstone of Topeka. The Colored Women's Club was also founded in the early 1900s. It occupied the house at 1149 Southwest Lincoln Street until a few years ago. The Topeka nonprofit Living the Dream Incorporated headquarters now occupies the clubhouse. In 1976, Tennessee Town became the first neighborhood improvement association in the city. Miss Lillian Bennett was its first president. She served in that capacity for 10 years.
Over the course of the semester, we learned a lot about what makes a community and how to build a strong community. As Dylan taught us about the rich history of Tennessee Town, we need to use this history and the assets of Tennessee Town to create a clear path forward to accomplish the NIA project. We had a unique project this semester to provide new ideas of how to drive community engagement among younger populations and make the history of Tennessee Town more accessible to all. Taking what we learned in the classroom and in the field, we believe we have a clear path forward towards Tennessee Towns to achieve their goal. We recommended to the NIA president to mimic the purpose of this class on a much smaller scale with the students of Topeka High. In class, we learned that in order to drive community growth and create a strong foundation of community, people of all ages need to be actively engaged within their community. Through countless discussions, we recognize that the biggest obstacle to that is getting younger communities engaged and involved. When I was in high school, I was a part of multiple clubs and organizations where I volunteered within my community. It is because of those experiences at a young age where I now feel compelled to continue to give back to my communities. So what does this look like? Reaching out to Topeka High teachers who teach mass media classes and see if they would collaborate with Tennessee Town to revamp the neighborhood website. Maybe updating the website with newer features, or maybe a Facebook page highlighting the past, present, and future of Tennessee Town. Or reaching out to Topeka High teachers who are club sponsors that focus on community building and community service, whether that be FBLA, FCCLA, or other clubs that focus on volunteering within the community. Working on the parks to clean them up, to encourage neighbors to utilize them more, or giving a few hours on the weekend to volunteer on community cleanups, or allowing them to visit the community like we did for this class and letting their creativity drive positive change within Tennessee Town. So why Topeka High students? Tennessee Town is a few blocks away from Topeka High. Getting students involved in making meaningful impacts in their own communities where they live can inspire young students to build that culture within their lives, starting a domino effect of community service and engagement for generations to come. High school students also have a much larger advantage than Washburn students can simply provide, and that is time. While as Washburn students, we can only spend one semester in this community project. However, if Topeka High students get involved as freshmen, they can devote 8 semesters of their high school years to give back and support Tennessee Town. Building important relationships and attachments to the community over time will lead to a stronger Tennessee Town and a more confident younger generation to give back to their own communities.
We've been working on this project for 4 months now, and it has been fun to see the seasons change over the time of this semester. We have had the opportunity to go on walks with our group and on our own through the neighborhood to really take in the major assets that stand out to better understand the history behind Tennessee Town. While we were on these walks, there were a few areas or parts that stood out to us that sparked ideas for future of this project, which Nolan discussed earlier. One of the things that we noticed while we were on these walks was that no one was using the parks or being active. A couple of the times that we went on the walks were after school got out, so we were expecting to see kids at the park playing basketball or burning energy from sitting all day in class, but we only saw less than a handful of kids. Another aspect that stood out to us while we were on these walks was that there were few to no people outside during the times we have been there. This is the first one we noticed because we were thinking there might be kids playing outside, families hanging out in backyards, or even individuals going on walks or riding bikes, taking advantage of the nice weather or the time to spend with loved ones. The third aspect we thought was necessary is neighborhood beautification. At one of the Neighborhood Improvement Association meetings we attended, the residents of Tennesseetown were upset with the city and city maintenance and were complaining about a dumpster being used as a toilet in a trailer house that they wanted removed from their neighborhood. There was a few houses that had unfinished areas of the house, and some yards were not as clean or maintained.
Tennesseetown is a neighborhood with a rich heritage and storied history, from being founded and built by trailblazing freed slaves to having members of the community present the landmark Brown v. Board decision to the Supreme Court. This community has made impacts that reach far beyond Topeka. Moving forward, Tennesseetown needs to pull from these historic values and propel them to a future of excellency. This can be done by working with Topeka High students and teachers in educating history and inspiring the next generation. Working with student groups in Topeka and leaning on the history of the neighborhood will inspire and strengthen relationships which are integral to the prosperity of the community.